안녕하세요. 오늘은 찰리와 초콜릿 공장의 비밀 제17장 August Gloop Goes Up the Pipe를 낭독해 보도록 하겠습니다. When Mr. Wonka turned around and saw what August Gloop was doing, he cried out, "Oh no, please, August, please. I beg of you not to do that. My chocolate must be untouched by human hands." August called out Mrs. Gloop. "Didn't you hear what the man said? Come away from that liver at once. This stuff is terrific," and August, taking not the slightest notice of his mother or Mr. Wonka. "Oh boy, I need a bucket to drink it properly." "August," cried Mr. Wonka, hopping up and down and waggling his stick in the air, "you must come away. You are dirtying my chocolate." "August," cried Mrs. Gloop. "August," cried Mr. Gloop. But August was dead to everything except the call of his enormous stomach. He was now lying full length of the ground with his head far out over the liver, lapping up the chocolate like a dog. "August," shouted Mr. Gloop, "you'll be giving that nasty cold of yours to about 1,000,000 people all over the country." "Be careful, August," shouted Mr. Gloop. "You are leaning too far out." Mr. Gloop was absolutely right, for suddenly there was a shriek, and then a splash. Into the river went August Gloop, and in 1 second he had disappeared under the brown surface. "Save him!" screamed Mrs. Gloop, going white in the face and waving her umbrella about. "He will drown! He can't swim or yard! Save him! Save him!" "Good heavens, woman," said Mr. Gloop, "I'm not diving in there. I've got my best suit on." August Gloop's face came up again to surface, painted brown with chocolate. "Help!" he yelled. "Fish me out!" "Don't just stand there," Mrs. Gloop screamed at Mr. Gloop. "Don't do something." "I'm doing something," said Mr. Gloop, who was now taking off his jacket and getting ready to dive into the chocolate. But while he was doing this, the wretched boy was being sucked closer and closer toward the mouth of one of the great pipe that was dangling down into the river. Then all at once the powerful suction took hold of him completely, and he was pulled under the surface and then into the mouth of the pipe. The crowd of the river bank waited breathlessly to see where he would come out. "There he goes!" somebody shouted, pointing upward, and sure enough, because the pipe was made of glass, August Gloop could be clearly seen shooting up inside it, head first, like a torpedo. "Help, mother, please!" screamed Mrs. Gloop. "Augustus, come back at once. Where are you going?" "It's a wonder to me," said Mr. Gloop, "how that pipe is big enough for him to go through it." "It isn't big enough," said Charlie Burkett. "Oh dear, look, he's slowing down." "So he is," said Grandpa Joe. "He's going to stick," said Charlie. "I think he is," said Grandpa Joe. "By golly, he has stuck," said Charlie. "It's his stomach that's done it," said Mr. Gloop. "He's blocked the whole pipe," said Grandpa Joe. "Smash the pipe!" yelled Mrs. Gloop, still waving her umbrella. "Augustus, come out of there at once." The watchers below could see the chocolate swishing around the boy in the pipe, and they could see it building up behind him in a solid mass, pushing against the blockage. The pressure was terrific. Something had to give. Something did give, and that something was August. Oof! Up he shot again like a bullet in the barrel of gun. "He is disappeared," yelled Mrs. Gloop. "Where does that pipe go to? Quick, call the fire, please." "Calm down, keep calm," cried Mr. Wonka. "Keep calm, my dear lady, keep calm. There's no danger whatever. August has gone on a little journey, that's all, a most interesting little journey, but he will come out of it just fine. You wait and see." "How can he possibly come out just fine?" snapped Mrs. Gloop. "He will be made into marshmallows in 5 seconds. "Impossible!" cried Mr. Wonka. "Unthinkable! Inconceivable! Absurd! He could never be made into marshmallows." "And why not, may I ask?" shouted Mrs. Gloop. Because the pipe doesn't go to the marshmallows room, Mr. Wonka answered. It doesn't go anywhere near it. That pipe, the one August went up, happened to lead directly to the room where I make a most delicious kind of strawberry-flavored chocolate-coated fudge. Then he will be made into strawberry-flavored chocolate-coated fudge, screamed Mrs. Croup. My poor Augustus! They'll be selling him by the pound all over the country tomorrow morning. Quite right, said Mr. Croup. I know I'm right, said Mrs. Croup. It's beyond a joke, said Mr. Croup. Mr. Wonka doesn't seem to think so, cried Mrs. Croup. Just look at him. He's laughing his head off. How dare you laugh like that when my boy's just gone up the pipe, you monster, she shrieked, pointing her umbrella at Mr. Wonka and thought he was going to run him out. You think it's a joke, do you? You think that sucking my boy up into your pa's room like that is just one great big closure joke? He'll be perfectly safe, said Mr. Wonka, giggling slightly. He'll be chocolate fudge, shrieked Mr. Croup. Never, cried Mr. Wonka. Of course he will, shrieked Mr. Croup. I wouldn't allow it, cried Mr. Wonka. And why not? Shrieked Mr. Croup. Because the taste would be terrible, said Mr. Wonka. Just imagine it. August-flavored chocolate-coated croup. No one would buy it. They most certainly would, cried Mr. Croup indignantly. I don't want to think about it. Nor do I, said Mr. Wonka. And I do promise you, madam, that your darling boy is perfectly safe. If he's perfectly safe, then where is he? Snapped Mrs. Croup. Lead me to him this instant. Mr. Wonka turned around and clicked his fingers sharply. Click, 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 3 times. Immediately an Oompa Loompa appeared, as if from nowhere, and stood beside him. The Oompa Loompa bowed and smiled, showing beautiful white teeth. His skin was rosy white, his long hair was golden brown, and the top of his head came just above the height of Mr. Wonka's chin. He wore the usual deerskin slung over his shoulder. Now listen to me, said Mr. Wonka, looking down at the tiny man. I want you to take Mrs. and Mr. Croup up to the fudge room and help them to find their son Augustus. He's just gone up the pipe. The Oompa Loompa took one look at Mrs. Croup and exploded into peals of laughter. Oh, do be quiet, said Mr. Wonka. Control yourself. Pull yourself together. Mrs. Croup doesn't think it's at all funny. You can say that again, said Mrs. Croup. Go straight to the fudge room, Mr. Wonka said to the Oompa Loompa. And when you get there, take a long stick and start poking around inside the big chocolate missing batter. I'm almost certain you'll find it in there. But you'd better look sharp. You will have to hurry. If you leave him in the chocolate missing batter too long, it's liable to get poured into the fudge boiler, and that really would be disaster, wouldn't it? My fudge would become quite uneatable. Mrs. Croup let out a shriek of fury. I'm joking, said Mr. Wonka, giggling madly behind his beard. I didn't mean it. Forgive me. I'm so sorry. Goodbye, Mrs. Croup and Mr. Croup. Goodbye. I'll see you later. As Mrs. and Mr. Croup and their tiny escort hurried away, the 5 Oompa Loompa and his far side of the river suddenly began hopping and dancing about and beating wildly upon a number of the very small drums. August Croup, they chant. August Croup. Grandpa, said Charlie, listen to them. Grandpa, what are they doing? Shh, whispered Grandpa Joe. I think they are going to sing us a song. I told you they loved singing, cried Mr. Wonka. Aren't they delightful? Aren't they charming? But you mustn't believe a word they said. It's all nonsense, every bit of it. Are you Oompa Loompa really joking, Grandpa? asked Charlie. Of course they are joking, answered Grandpa Joe. They must be joking. At least, I hope they're joking. Don't you? 들어주셔서 감사합니다.